I started working at 15. Not because I wanted extra cash, but because I knew no one else would pay my way. While my younger sister got her first car as a sweet 16 gift, I took the bus in winter with frozen fingers and empty pockets. They called me too proud, too stubborn, ungrateful. I never asked for a dime. I never raised my voice. But I watched. I remembered. And now, for the first time, I'm going to tell the truth. Not to blame, but to break free. If you've ever been the invisible child, this story is yours too. Thanksgiving at home always looked picture perfect. My mom had this thing for presentation. Linen table runners, gold-rimmed plates, candles that smelled like cinnamon and guilt. I hadn't been back since spring. And yet, as soon as I stepped inside, everything was exactly as I remembered. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and fading expectations. Maddie's laughter echoed from the kitchen, soft and effortless, like it belonged. "Kayla's here," Dad called out, not looking up from his phone. Maddie emerged with arms open, her new manicure catching the chandelier light. She hugged me like someone greeting a guest they liked, not a sister they missed. Dinner was a carousel of compliments, none of which stopped at my end of the table. Maddie had just gotten into a photography elective. Mom said she had an eye for beauty. Dad laughed, said she'd always had a gift. When I mentioned I'd presented a paper at a psychology conference last month, no one responded. They just passed the cranberry sauce. That night I lay awake in my childhood room, Maddie's old posters still on the walls. I counted cracks in the ceiling, like I used to as a kid, wondering if the ceiling would ever collapse on me in my sleep. I almost wished it would. At least then someone might notice. The next morning, Mom asked me to help clear out the attic. I agreed, mostly to stay away from the noise downstairs. I found the usual: holiday decor, baby clothes, boxes of unopened gifts labeled Maddie 2020. And then, under a broken lamp, I found a small, dusty envelope with my name on it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Grandma Ruth's. I opened it with shaking fingers. "Kayla, my sweet girl, if you're reading this, maybe no one ever told you. You are not difficult. You are not cold. You were just born into a home that didn't know how to love your kind of fire. If you feel lost, know that you're not wrong. You're just misplaced. But you will find your way, and when you do, it will make sense why you never fit their mold." The words hit like thunder in a silent field. Grandma Ruth had passed when I was 13. I remembered her as the only one who ever listened when I talked. She used to make me tea when I had nightmares, told me I'd grow into my silence. But this letter? I'd never seen it. Why hadn't it been given to me? I flipped the envelope. A date, March 14th, 2017. That was the week Mom yelled at me for breaking her antique vase. I hadn't done it. I'd tried to stop Maddie's dog from chewing the curtain, and in the chaos, the vase fell. But Mom didn't want to hear explanations. She'd slapped the table and said, "You never take responsibility, Kayla, just like always." That night I sat across from her in the kitchen, the envelope folded neatly in my lap. "Did you ever see this?" I asked, holding up the letter. She looked at it, eyes narrowing. "Where did you get that?" "Attic, behind the lamp." She wiped her hands on a towel and took a long look at me. "Your grandmother wasn't well near the end. She wrote all kinds of things. Some didn't make sense." My jaw clenched. This made sense. She sighed. "Kayla, not everything needs to be dissected. You always read too much into things." I stood slowly. "And you always read too little." I didn't raise my voice. I never did. But I saw something shift in her eyes. brief like a flicker of fear or shame, before it vanished. That night I couldn't sleep. The letter lay under my pillow like a secret flame. I kept reading it over and over, as if the words might somehow fill the holes in me. At breakfast, Dad asked if I was driving back to school that day or the next. "Today," I said. Mom didn't look up. "That's probably for the best." Maddie scrolled on her phone, sipping orange juice like none of it touched her. As I packed, I realized something important. They didn't hate me. They just didn't see me. Not really. And maybe, just maybe, that was worse. Before I left, I took one last look at the house. It stood as it always had. Quiet, polished, heavy with unspoken things. I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I finally understood. I wasn't the broken one. I was just the one who remembered everything. My days blurred into a rhythm of survival. I worked mornings at the campus cafe, evenings tutoring high school students online, and weekends shelving books at the city library. 3 jobs, 7 days a week, and still, my GPA held steady, 3.9. I never complained, never asked for help. I just did what needed to be done. People thought I was strong. Professors praised my discipline. Classmates said they admired my hustle. No one saw the pills I took to sleep, or the way my hands trembled during lectures. I was the girl who had it all together, and I was falling apart. One Tuesday night, somewhere between finishing a paper on developmental psychology and reviewing flashcards for a midterm, my vision blurred. I remember the fluorescent lights of the library, the soft hum of printers, the weight in my chest. Then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was in the University Health Center. My head throbbed. My mouth tasted like metal. A nurse asked me if I'd eaten anything that day. I couldn't remember. My phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. "Hey, can you cover my shift this Friday? They said you might be out, but we're short-staffed." I stared at it for a long time. Not my mom, not my dad, not even Maddie. Just work. Just more of what I was to everyone. Function, not feeling. Have you ever been so exhausted, so hollowed out, that you wish someone would just say, "Are you okay?" instead of, "Did you finish that?" When I was released, I didn't go home. I went straight back to my dorm, crawled under the thin blanket, and turned my phone face down. The next day, I checked my university email. Subject line, "Congratulations, Maddie James, scholarship nominee." I blinked. Read it again. Maddie? She'd applied to the School of Art's Global Creativity Grant, a prestigious scholarship meant for outstanding students across disciplines. I'd applied too. I had published papers, led research, volunteered in mental health outreach. Maddie, to my knowledge, had curated an Instagram photography page and taken a gap year to find her aesthetic. My inbox was empty. No rejection, no confirmation, just silence. I visited the scholarship office out of curiosity, or maybe desperation. I told the receptionist my name, and she checked the system. Her expression tightened. "There's no record of your application being finalized." "That's impossible," I said, pulse racing. "I submitted everything." "Your academic credentials are here," she said, "but the personal recommendation from a guardian or family member is missing." My heart dropped. I remembered the night I'd sat with Mom, walking her through the online form. She'd nodded, said she'd do it right after dinner. I even followed up a few days later. She'd smiled. "Done, honey. Don't stress." It was never submitted. Back in my professor's office, I asked if he had received any follow-up or documentation from my family. He tilted his head. "No, Kayla. I've only ever communicated with you." I assumed that was intentional. It hit me then. Not just the scholarship, but every application, every opportunity I'd ever pursued alone. Letters I'd forged, deadlines I'd chased, phone calls I'd made from public phones because I couldn't ask for favors. My mother never vouched for me. She had for Maddie, though. I saw the social media post later that week, my mom posing with Maddie, holding a bouquet. The caption, "Proud to see our girl's talent recognized. Support your kids." I didn't cry. I sat on a bench in the middle of the park, surrounded by families. A woman next to me knelt beside her toddler, tying his shoelaces while he babbled nonsense. Her face glowed. No frustration. Just patience. I watched them for a long time, wondering what that kind of love felt like. Not earned, not negotiated, just given. I pulled out my phone and began typing. A message to my mother. "You forgot to submit the letter." Again. I needed that. I needed you. I don't know if you ever realize how alone I've felt in this house, in this family. You always say I'm the strong one. Maybe that's just code for less worthy of help. I paused, deleted it, typed again. "Did you know I fainted this week? At the library. No one called, no one noticed, but someone still asked me to work the next day. That's what I am, right? Reliable. Replaceable." I stared at the blinking cursor. My fingers hovered, the message unfinished. I deleted the entire thing. My screen reflected a version of me I didn't recognize. Hollow-eyed, lips pressed tight, holding back years that had nowhere left to go. I locked my phone and leaned back against the bench. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty. And that, somehow, felt worse. The email came at 2:13 a.m., right when I was about to close my laptop and surrender to another sleepless night. Subject line: "Congratulations. Welcome to the Insight Mental Health Internship, New York." I reread it 3 times, waiting for some kind of catch. But it was real. I'd been accepted into one of the most competitive summer programs in the country. Only 12 students selected nationwide. It felt like validation, like the universe whispering, "See? You were never average." Then came the fine print. The program would not cover housing or living expenses. Estimated cost, $4,800. I called home the next day, my voice cautiously hopeful. Mom answered. "New York," she said, dragging out each syllable like it tasted sour. "That's a bit excessive, isn't it? Why not find something here closer? Save money. Be practical." "I got in," I said quietly. "Only 12 students." "That's great, sweetie," she replied, distracted. "But we really can't help financially right now. You know how things are." I knew. I always knew. That evening, Maddie posted a photo on Instagram, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, hair perfectly curled, holding a croissant. Caption: "Finding myself through travel and a Europe adventure." I stared at the screen, then opened the comment section. Mom: "So proud of you, baby. The world is your classroom." Dad: "Be safe, sweetheart. Call us if you need more cash." I didn't throw my phone, though I wanted to. I didn't scream, though I could have. Instead, I opened a new tab and searched student travel loans, fast approval. It took 30 minutes to apply, 5 seconds to be approved. I stared at the confirmation page, heart pounding, then clicked submit. Next, I paid for the flight, one way. When I landed in New York, it felt like breathing air I hadn't tasted before. The city was loud, relentless, indifferent. Exactly what I needed. I checked into the dorms reserved for interns, expecting to have my own room. I didn't. I had a roommate. Her name was Amara. She was tall, wore her hair in thick braids, and had the kind of presence that made people look twice. On our first night, we shared a late dinner of microwave noodles, legs dangling from the windowsill. "You from around here?" she asked. "Oregon," I replied. She whistled. "Damn, that's far. What brings you?" "An internship," she nodded. "Same." We were quiet for a moment. "My dad said I was too emotional to be a lawyer," she said suddenly. "So now I'm studying law just to prove I can sue his company one day." I blinked. "I'm not joking," she added, smirking. "Family's complicated." I let out a short laugh. "You could say that again." We talked until 2 a.m. about growing up feeling invisible, about the way certain wounds don't bruise the skin, but leave scars anyway. She told me about hiding her grades from her parents because they thought she was too distracted to succeed. "I learned early," she said, "that silence is often rewarded in the wrong homes." That line stayed with me. It gnawed at something inside me. If you've ever been told that silence is smart, I wonder. Have you lost your voice too? The next morning, I sat at the corner desk in our dorm room, the sun barely creeping in through the blinds. I opened my laptop and stared at the blinking cursor in a blank document. Then I started writing. "I was raised, not loved." That was my first line. I wrote for hours. Words poured out like they'd been waiting years. I wrote about the favoritism, the exhaustion, the unspoken hierarchy of affection. I didn't use names. I didn't need to. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. I created a blog. "Raised, not loved." I posted the entry, hands shaking. Then I waited. I expected nothing. Maybe a few views, a comment or two. But within an hour, the post had 120 views. By midnight, over 1,000. People began to share their own stories in the comments. I thought I was alone. I've never told anyone this. Your words feel like my life. Amara sat beside me reading in silence. "Damn," she whispered. "You really said it." I looked at her. "Said what?" "What most of us can't." I didn't know it then, but something had shifted. A quiet crack in the foundation of who I thought I had to be. For the first time, I wasn't surviving for someone else's approval. I was writing my own voice into existence. I never planned for the blog to go viral. I didn't even think anyone outside a few trauma forums would care. But by the end of day 2, the post had over 200,000 views. The numbers climbed like wildfire, shared by advocacy pages, reposted by influencers, even quoted by a minor celebrity who wrote, "This broke me." At first, I felt numb. Then I felt terror. I watched my phone buzz constantly with notifications, comments, DMs, interview requests. Local news stations wanted to feature me. Psychology magazines reached out for op-eds. There was a headline somewhere. "Anonymous blogger opens floodgates on family favoritism." But then came the call. "Kayla, what the hell are you doing?" Mom's voice was tight, furious. No hello. No pause. "I didn't name anyone," I said, heart thudding. "Everyone knows it's about us. Your aunt called me crying. Maddie's friend sent her screenshots. People are talking. You made us look like monsters." I kept silent. She wasn't finished. "You always twist things to make yourself look like some martyr. This is manipulation. You're embarrassing this family." My throat clenched. Maybe if the truth is embarrassing, that's the problem. There was a beat of silence, then a cold click. I set the phone down gently, staring at the wall. I thought that was the worst of it, until Maddie posted her own response online. A photo of us as kids, arms around each other, captioned, "It breaks my heart that my sister feels this way, but she's painting a version of our family that isn't real. We all have struggles. She's using pain for attention." The comments were brutal. People took sides. Some called her brave. Others called me selfish, dramatic, unstable. One comment read, "Another Gen Z victim complex. She needs therapy, not a following." I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. But I did call Maddie. She answered, "Kayla, why are you doing this?" I didn't speak. I let the silence hang, raw and buzzing. She waited. "Say something," she whispered. I breathed in, slow and shaky. Let it out. Then hung up. By the end of the week, the fallout had settled into something quieter, heavier. Not rage, just rejection. Extended family unfollowed me. Old friends stopped texting. My former roommate, Jamie, messaged, "I love you, but this is too much. You should take the post down. For your own good." I didn't reply. Instead, I reread one comment from a stranger. "I've never told anyone this, but your words made me feel seen. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." That one stayed with me. Gave me just enough breath to keep going. Then something I didn't expect arrived in my inbox. Subject, "I'm sorry, Dad." I stared at the sender's name for a full minute before clicking. The email was short. "I know we weren't there in the ways we should have been. I didn't see it before. But I've been reading. I've been thinking. I don't know how to fix what's broken. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry." There was an attachment. Voice message Ruth, 99.99 more. Hands trembling, I clicked play. The audio crackled, soft and faded. Then I heard her. Grandma Ruth's voice, tired but clear. "She's here. Beautiful. So quiet. Kayla. I can feel it in my chest. This child isn't just going to live. She's going to shift something, like she's born with a purpose." A pause. "They may not see her right away. They'll try to fit her into something she'll never be. But she'll find her own way. She'll show them. Not with anger, but with truth." The audio ended. I pressed my palms against my face. Breath caught somewhere between a sob and a laugh. It was like she knew. Like she always knew. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in the quiet of the New York dorm room, windows cracked open to the hum of a city that never asked me to be anything other than present. Amara walked in, noticed the look on my face. She sat beside me, silent for a moment. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "No," I corrected. "But I'm getting there. Therapy wasn't what I expected. It wasn't magic or revelation. It was slow, quiet work, like trying to untangle a knot that had been tightening for years. Some sessions were full of silence. Others cracked something open inside me I didn't know I'd been holding. My therapist, Dr. Rosen, never asked leading questions. She just held space. And in that space, I began to tell the truth. Not the big, dramatic kind, but the smaller ones. Like how I'd flinch when someone complimented me. Or how I always apologized before asking for anything, even water. "You learn to be small," she said once, "because love always came with conditions." I nodded. I didn't even cry. I was too tired to cry. But for the first time, I didn't feel weak for saying it out loud. "Outside therapy," I wrote. The blog had grown into something bigger, a manuscript. A story not about blame, but about remembering. I wrote about my childhood, my silence, the way I used to sit at dinner tables filled with laughter and still feel like furniture. I didn't villainize my parents. I didn't defend them either. I just told the truth. The working title was Raised in Silence. A small publishing house reached out, offered a modest advance. I said yes. Not because of the money, but because the idea of someone reading my story, holding it in their hands, it felt like reclaiming something that had always been taken from me. After the final edits were sent, I took a train home. Not to visit, just to see. The house stood exactly as I remembered. White siding, faded shutters. a porch that creaked in protest. I stayed across the street, leaning against a stop sign, watching. The windows were lit. Someone laughed inside, probably Maddie or Mom, or maybe both. I didn't cross. I didn't knock. I just stood there, grounding myself in the fact that I no longer needed to be let in. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Maddie. "I read your book, Kayla. I was wrong. About so many things. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, typed nothing, but for the first time her words didn't sting. They landed, not as a fix, but as something true. Back in New York, the book launched modestly, then exploded. Podcasts invited me to speak. Colleges asked me to visit. Emails flooded in from people who had been the invisible kid, the strong one, the easy child, who was only easy because no one ever really asked how they were doing. I started my own podcast, Raised in Silence, a space for people to tell their stories without fear of being dismissed. Within 6 months, it hit 1 million streams. Someone messaged, "This saved me from thinking I was crazy." Someone else wrote, "You gave me the words I didn't know I needed." The most surprising email came from a university. They wanted to start a scholarship program, named after me, for students who had been financially or emotionally abandoned by their families, but who kept going anyway. I agreed on one condition, that students didn't have to prove their pain, just their effort. Applications opened in the spring, and then a new name appeared in the applicant list, Maddie James. Not under recipient, but volunteer mentor. She had filled out the entire form, availability, references, even a short essay. I used to think loving someone meant protecting the family image. Now I think it means being willing to listen, even when it hurts. I want to help someone like my sister, someone I didn't understand when it mattered most. I stared at the screen. Part of me tensed, unsure. Could she really mean it? Was this another performance, another redemption arc scripted for her comfort? But another part of me, a quieter one, remembered her text, the sincerity, the way she hadn't defended herself this time. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it, and for the first time I allowed myself to believe that maybe healing wasn't just about walking away. Maybe it was about deciding who you let walk beside you again. I hosted Thanksgiving that year, for the first time. It wasn't grand. Just a mismatched table borrowed from neighbors, chairs that didn't match, paper napkins printed with tiny orange leaves. The apartment still smelled faintly of printer ink and old textbooks, but I set candles on the windowsill anyway, hoping the flicker might soften everything. The invitation came with one condition. Everyone had to bring a dish, and no one was allowed to bring the past. I wasn't sure who would show up, but they came. Dad arrived first with a pumpkin pie and eyes that didn't meet mine. Maddie brought sweet potato casserole, visibly overcooked, and laughed awkwardly when she placed it on the counter. Mom came last, carrying stuffing in the same glass dish she used every year. It looked exactly as I remembered. Maybe better. We ate quietly at first. No one brought up the blog, or the book, or the year of silence that wrapped itself between us like plastic film over something bruised. Instead, we talked about movies, about how cold the city had gotten, about Maddie's new cat that apparently hated her. Laughter came in strange little bursts, hesitant but real. No one apologized, no one defended. We just were. After dinner, I stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, hands in hot water. It felt grounding somehow, scrubbing dishes while the world sat still behind me. Mom joined, drying plates in silence. And then, without a word, she placed her hand on my shoulder. No pressure, no agenda, just presence. I didn't move. I didn't cry. But something in my chest finally loosened. Weeks later, an email arrived. Oxford. Full scholarship. Sociology department. They wanted me to join their graduate program to research intergenerational favoritism. How it shapes identity, silence, survival. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It wasn't just about getting in. It was that they saw me. They saw the work, the insight, the story behind the scars. My book had already reached tens of thousands. But now it would move through academia, through systems, through real change. Shortly after, a film crew approached. A documentary. They'd read Raised in Silence and wanted to bring the story to screen. Not as a drama, but as a mirror for others like me. We filmed in cafes, schools, my dorm room. I spoke not with fire, but with calm. I didn't need to scream anymore. The truth had its own volume now. The premiere aired nationwide. Emails poured in again. Your words saved me. I watched this with my mum. We cried together. I finally understand my brother. But there was one thing left to do. I flew back home. Not to the house, not to my family, but to a quiet hill lined with weathered stones. The wind was soft, tugging at my coat as if trying to pull me back. I let it. Grandma Ruth's grave was nestled under a crooked tree, moss growing along the base. I sat down beside it, pulling a small hardcover from my bag. The first copy, worn from travel, pages dog-eared, annotated, loved. I placed it on the ground gently. I brought this for you, I whispered. I think you'd be proud. The air held still for a moment, not reverent, just listening. I leaned back, eyes on the sky, fingers brushing the grass. And then I said the thing I hadn't said to anyone. Not aloud. I didn't win because I screamed louder. I won because I stopped pretending silence was strength. The wind picked up. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was her. Either way, I stood up lighter.